Ever heard of Philip K. Dick? If you do, you must recognize this book. Do you know there's a film adaptation of the story called Total Recall, released in 2012? And do you also know that the film is actually a remake of an original film released in 1990? You do? Okay. Anyways, for those who haven't read it or watched the film, I will briefly tell you the synopsis of the book and the film. And for those who have, allow me to refresh your memories. Oh wait, before that, for your information, the book, We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, is written by Philip K. Dick and is a science fiction short story released in 1966. And the film, Total Recall, is released in 2012 and is inspired by the book. But it is also a remake of an original film with the same title released in 1990. Okay, let's go on to the synopsis. So in the short story, our main character, Douglas Quaid, a seemingly ordinary clerk, is bored with his mundane life and dreams of traveling to Mars. That dream leads him to the Office of Recall Incorporated, where he purchases a memory implant of trip to Mars, along with a bonus spy package. However, he discovers that he actually was a spy on Mars, and his current identity is a manufactured memory. If you think that's ironic, you should really read the ending. I will not tell you the whole storyline here, as I will be explaining it in more detail later. Now, as for the film, let's watch the trailer.
Welcome to Recall, the company that can turn your dreams into real memories. For a factory worker named Douglas Quaid, even though he's got a beautiful wife who he loves, the mind trip sounds like the perfect vacation from his frustrating life.
Happy with how your life's turned out?
Why the hell shouldn't I be?
Well, real memories of life as a super spy might be just what he needs. But the procedure goes horribly wrong, and Quaid suddenly becomes a hunted man. He then teams up with a rebel fighter on a search to find the head of the underground resistance and take down the leader of the free world. The line between fantasy and reality gets blurred, and the fate of his world hangs in the balance as Quaid discovers his true identity, his true love, and his true fate.
Now, I believe we all get the general idea of how the story goes. Comparing the synopsis of the short story and the film adaptation, it is clear that the idea is similar, which the both main characters are bored with their lives and went to get a memory implant for a change. But after that, the plot went into a totally different path. I believe this is called a loose adaptation. What is a loose adaptation? Well, let me answer that for you. According to Louis Giannetti, I don't really know how to pronounce his name, but according to him, there are three types of literary adaptation, which is loose, faithful, and literal. These three categories of adaptation can be used to determine how well any movie derived from a literary source was translated into film. A loose adaptation is one that would take only a part of a story or a certain aspect and translate it to film. There are dramatic changes made into the story, such as the setting and cast, which is what happened in Total Recall. But having said that, why exactly do we claim that Total Recall 2012 is a loose adaptation? Let's compare the short story and the film adaptation by looking at the adaptation process, which includes paragraph or scene, developing characters, point of view, setting and content, plot, conflict, and resolution. Now let's begin the first part, paragraph and scene. The first sentence of a book or a film should catch the reader's or the viewer's attention. This is also called explosion or hook. It occurs at the start of the story and is meant to hook the reader so that he or she keeps turning the pages. The best hooks are just the first sentence of the book. So let's see what the first sentence in the book is. The moment you open the book, the first sentence that you read is, "He awoke and wanted Mars." The moment I read that, I was like, that's random. But it worked. That first sentence made me wonder, why he suddenly want to go to Mars? There must be a reason, right? So I kept reading. And then he said, "I will go," he said to himself. "Before I die, I'll see Mars." The beginning of the story is interesting enough to hook the reader. So that is one of the examples of how authors catch the reader's attention with the first sentence or paragraph of the book. Now let's see the first scene of the film adaptation. So that's interesting. As you can see, the first scene already informed the viewers of the film settings, and the viewers understand that only two habitable territories remain, which is the United Federation of Britain, or UFB, and the colony, which is Australia. So after watching the first scene, the viewers might wonder what actually happened, or what will happen later in the story. So that is the hook in the film. Now, having explained the paragraph and the scene, we can proceed to the next three process. Oh wait! But in order to do that, we need to take the fall.
Please prepare for the gravity reversal. Oh my god, this is so exciting! Why is
Oh, I see you have arrived. Hope you had a good ride in the fall. Welcome to the UFB, or you thought. Let's look at the point of view. Point of view generally refers to a shot that directly represents a character's viewpoint. So there are a few types, and the first one is first-person point of view. The story is told from the perspective or from the viewpoint of the protagonist or another character telling the story that revolves around the protagonist. Then the next one is third-person point of view, limited. This point of view presents the action from the perspective of an ideal observer. So this is the most common point of view that is used in TV shows and filmmaking. And the term limited refers to the idea that the audience can only know the thoughts or feelings of a few characters only. Okay, let's look at the point of view in the text. We can remember it for you wholesale. So in the text, the story is told from the third person point of view, limited. It is told using the pronouns he, she, they. For instance, at the beginning of the story, it is said that he awoke and wanted Mars. So we can see that the narrator uses the pronouns he. And then the writer knows a few characters' actions, thoughts, and feelings. For example, the writer reveals Quill's thoughts. For example, he said, "Will I actually believe I've been on Mars, that I managed to fulfill my lifetime ambition?" And the story mostly revolves around Quill and Recall Incorporated. And a doctor at Recall, McLean, it is also revealed about his thoughts at the end of the story. He thought, "I guess it would be hard, but you did until now." McLean reflected. That is what is written in the text. So we can say that the text is told from a third person point of view, limited, because it only reveals Quill's thought and McLean's thought, and not every other characters. As for in the movie, we can see that the events always revolves around Quill or Hauser. Therefore, we opine that this movie has multiple viewpoints, which are third person limited and first person point of view. The story started with Quill's dream, and as the story unfolds, we can see that most of the events are from his perspective. But there are also a few scenes where Quill does not appear. So it means that the story is being told from the third person limited point of view. For example, when his wife, Laurie, who is an agent working for the UFB, searched for him after he had escaped. Now let's look at the character's development in terms of appearance, action, speech, and thought. So let's look at the text first. It is revealed that Douglas Quill is a clerk who dreams of going to Mars. He is very determined to go to Mars. When he said, "I will go before I die, I'll see Mars." Although he doubts that he will believe that he had went to Mars by getting the memory implant, he still wants to go. Ironically, it turns out that he was a secret agent who went to Mars for a mission. So when the Interplanet Police came for him, he regained his memories, his mission when he went to Mars. So he became aware of his capabilities and he fought them and ran away. So he talks to the Interplanet agent because he don't want to run away forever. So what can we say about Quill's character is he is a strong character, he is passionate, he is brave, he is intelligent, because his wife said that he is obsessed of Mars. You can see that Quill's character develops by having just a dream that led to an action to fulfill his wish, even though that he knows that it is not real. He thought that it is good enough if it feels real. However, this action has led him into trouble as Recall discovered that he is a secret agent. He denied that because he can't remember anything about being a secret agent. All he can remember is he is a factory worker who has been married for 7 years, and his memory was erased. And then the government police turned up and he fought the police instinctively because the capabilities to fight is in him. From the movie, we can say that Hauser is a strong character. He has a strong will, so he went to Recall to get his memory implant, and then he has a strong heart. Even though he doesn't remember who he was, but he was willing to help Matthias to stop Cohagen's plan of invading the colony. And then he is also brilliant in tactical because he put the explosives in the hall before he saved Molina and to save the colony. And we can say that the character in the movie and text are quite similar because they wanted to go to Mars, and they want it because they had a boring life, just a mere worker who's had enough of their life working every day to serve the government. And then the character develop and they become stronger until the end of the story. Next, let's look at the setting and context. The setting where the story takes place in the text, we can remember it for you wholesale, and the movie Total Recall is different, though the story may seem quite similar. So let's look at the text. It was not mentioned where or when the story takes place, but as we read through the text, we can see that it is set in a futuristic setting because there are presence of hovercars. Let's quote from the text. He gazed out the kitchen window at the hovercars and traffic runnels. Apart from that, there are also high technology used in the story, for example, from Recall Incorporated and the Interplan. Recall Incorporated has a high technology to implant extra factual memory into someone's head. And for the Interplan, they have a technology, they put a telepathic transmitter inside Quill's head because they want to know his thoughts. They want to know if he had regained his erased memories of going to Mars. And they can even interact with Quill through the telepathic transmitter. So we can say that these events clearly shows that the story sets in a high-tech futuristic setting. Meanwhile, in the movie Total Recall, the story sets place at post-apocalyptic setting. It is told at the beginning of the story. At the end of 21st century, global chemical warfare left the planet nearly uninhabitable. Living space is now Earth's most valuable resource. Only two territories remain, the United Federation of Britain and the colony. So we can say that the audience are clearly told about where and when the story takes place. Next, we are going to look at the plot. So, let's go to the fall.
Please prepare for gravity reversal.
Hello, welcome back to the colony. Sorry, that was lame. Anyways, moving on to the plot. We are going to look at the plot diagram. This will probably take a while, so make yourself comfortable. I will also apply Campbell theory on the hero's journey as I talk about the plot. Okay, the plot starts with an explosion or hook, as I've explained earlier. Then there's the exposition, which is the introduction to a story, including the primary characters' names, setting, mood, and time. So in the book, at the beginning of the story, the main character, Douglas Quayle, wakes up from a dream about Mars, where he had longed to go. Readers are introduced to Quayle's wife, Kirsten, who is dismissive of his desire to travel to Mars. We also learn that Quayle is a miserable, little salaried employee. Well, that's what he said. So wanting to escape his mundane life, this invites him to the adventure, or according to Campbell, the call. So instead of going to work, he visits Recall Incorporated to purchase a memory implant of a trip to Mars. Quayle sits down with McLean, who explains the procedure. Quayle expresses some doubt, which is the threshold. But McLean convinces him that the procedure is worth the price and promises to give him a full refund if he remembers anything about Recall Incorporated after receiving the implant. Well, after much hesitation and doubt, he concedes and pays the fee. He adds during his conversation with McLean that he would like to have gone to Mars not merely on vacation, but as a secret agent working for the Interplan Police Agency. Awesome. As for the film adaptation, the viewers are introduced to the film setting. Let's see the first scene of the film again. Just because. At the end of 21st century, a global war devastates the Earth. The remaining habitable territory is at minimum and is divided into two. The United Federation of Britain, or UFB, and the colony, Australia. Many residents of the colony travel to the UFB to work in the factories via the Fall, a gravity elevator which travels through Earth. Viewers are also introduced to the main character, a factory worker named Douglas Quaid, who wanted to escape his frustrating life. Similar to the book, the call happens when he decides to visit Recall, a company that implants artificial memories. Recall employee Bob McLean convinced Quaid to be implanted with memories of Secret Agent. So that is the exposition of the book and the film. Now, the second point, conflict. Every story has conflicts, even our lives have conflicts. But I will skip this part as Shifa will be addressing it in more details later. Is the rising action. The rising action is all of the events that eventually leads to climax, including character development and events that create suspense. This is where the protagonist will face the challenges. So I will briefly list the challenges that the main character faced. In the book, after putting Quail into sleep and questioning him, Loie? I don't know. Anyways, he discovers that Quail had actually gone to a month-long trip to Mars as a secret agent for Interplan. Well, that is when everything started to go horribly wrong. So Quail returns home after his visit to Recall, preparing to write a letter of complaint to the Better Business Bureau. That's when he discovers a box of Martian fauna in his desk. That's when he realized something is wrong with his memories. He then questioned his wife, Kirsten, about whether he had really gone to Mars or not. And because of that, Kristen believes that he is having a psychotic break and decides to leave him. It's really not his day, isn't it? And to add, after Kristen leaves, he is suddenly confronted by two armed men. Well, these men, or officers, they explain everything to Quail, including his month-long mission to Mars to assassinate a political opponent of Earth's government. So after the mission, Quail is brought back to Earth and his memory wiped clean. Now that he is beginning to remember his past, the agents have no choice but to kill him. But before the agents could shoot him, he uses his assassin skills to escape. So that is the challenges that Quail had to face in the book. Similarly, in the film, just as Quaid is ready to be implanted, Mac discovers that Quaid has real memories of being a spy. Mac and his co-workers are suddenly gunned down by SWAT team. Those guys are fast. Quaid instinctively reacts and kills the officers before escaping. He returns home to his wife Loie, who attempts to kill him, revealing that she's not his wife for 7 years, but an undercover UFB agent who has been monitoring him for the past 6 weeks.
There's no Douglas Quaid, there never was.
But luckily, Quaid managed to escape. He later discovered that he was formerly Carl Hauser, a highly skilled agent working for UFB Chancellor Cohagen. Quaid and Melina then travel to meet Matthias in order to regain his real memories and find out the truth. Then comes the climax. It is the most exciting point of the story, and it's a turning point for the plot or goals of the main character. This is usually where the protagonist will go into the abyss, facing their greatest challenge alone. So in the book, having escaped from his conapt, Quail sits on a park bench, communicating with the Interplan agents through his telepathic chip. He agrees to turn himself in at Interplan headquarters if they promise not to kill him, and instead erase his memory and replace it with an exciting new memory that will keep him from becoming bored and thinking about Mars again. As for the film adaptation, Quaid finally meets Matthias, and while he searches the memories of Quaid, or Hauser, SWAT team led by Loie and Cohagen burst in. Quaid, Melina and Matthias are then captured. Cohagen informs Matthias that Quaid, or Hauser, was secretly working for him without even knowing it, owing to the alteration of his memories, and that the kill code was sufficient to lure Matthias out of hiding. Cohagen then kills Matthias. and orders Hawes's mind to be restored to make him loyal again. So the climax leads to the folding action. So the folding action is where everything that happens as a result of the climax, including wrapping up the plot points, questions being answered, and character development. And this is also where transformation and revelation usually occurs. So in the book, an interplan agent takes Quill back to Recall Incorporated to have the false memory implanted. The agent decides to implant a memory of an encounter with alien invaders when Quill was 9 years old. But instead of fighting the aliens, Quill won them over with kindness and make them agree to a covenant that they will not attack the Earth as long as Quill is alive. This false memory makes Quill feel important as he is the only thing preventing alien invasion. As opposed to the book, in the film, Cohaagen launches his invasion of the colony through the Fall. I don't know why I keep doing that. Anyways, Quaid arrives at the Fall and manages to sneak aboard. He installs timed explosive within the Fall and searches for Melina. As Quaid and Melina fight the soldiers and Cohaagen, Quaid's explosive detonates. Quaid and Melina jump off the Fall before it plummets beneath the surface and explodes with Cohaagen and his army still on board. And that scene and part of the story leads to the resolution. The resolution is not always happy, but it does complete the story. It can leave a reader with question, frustration, or satisfaction. In this case, the ending of both the story and the film might give us mixed feelings. Anyways, that is for the plot. That's a lot of information. We only have 2 more processes left, so let's move on to the next part. Let's move on to the next part. Shiva.
Oh, you're done? I thought you were going to take a year. Okay, let us move to the next point, shall we? Conflict is extremely important element in storytelling. And you see, conflict is a struggle between opposing forces, and this struggle is what makes up the events of a story as a character tries to reach their goal. But something is stopping them, so they must figure out how to overcome this obstacle. Okay, another way to think about it is that conflict is the problems that exist and the attempts to solve those problems. So, a story's plot is simply the character trying to solve the problem in front of them, and if they solve enough problems, they get to the end. We can relate this to the Booker's theory of overcoming the monster, where the character tries to overcome some kind of evil. As we all know, there are 2 types of conflict, external and internal. The external conflict deals with the obstacle that the character faces in the external world. In the movie, after Quaid discovered that his current identity is fake, he gets a message from himself to go to his old apartment in the UFB to find the key of his true identity. However, his fake wife and her team is in the way, so Quaid has to face another high-speed chase with his crazy fake wife that tries to kill him. Another conflict is when Quill wants to stop Cohaagen's mission to take over the colony. However, in order to do that, he has to prevent the robot armies from entering the colony. So, he overcomes it by killing the leader Cohaagen and destroying the Fall, including all the robot armies. But we can remember it for you wholesale. The Interplan wants to kill Quill after he gained his old memories. However, Quill wants to live. So, in order to do that, he has to come out with a plan to stop the Interplan from killing him. And he managed to overcome it by giving the Interplan idea to replace his memories with something more exciting this time. Internal conflict. The internal conflict has to do with the internal choices that the character must make and the emotional attachment the character has. Okay, for the Quill struggles on whether to trust his best friend Henry or Melina when his friend tells him everything that happens is just an illusion, including Melina. Henry tells him that he actually still back at Recall and asks him to shoot Melina as proof that none of this is real. However, Quaid manages to overcome it and decides to trust Melina instead and kills Henry. While in the book, Quill struggles whether to believe his memories to Mars is real or whether it is actually implanted memory created by Recall. So, that's all for conflict. Let's move to the last point, the resolution. The resolution happens at the end of the story after the conflict is resolved. During the resolution, we find out the answer to any unanswered question, or we have to answer those questions for ourselves. Well, it depends on how the story ends though. As we all know, there are several types of options to end a story. For the text, the end is resolved, when Rico once again trying to implant new memory. They discovered that Quail did in fact stop the alien invasion when he was 9 years old. Fearing that the alien will return if the implant kills him, Quail is left with his memory and life intact. So the outcome here is clear, while in the movie, the ending is, well, not so clear. Although the film's post-climax resolution would seem to indicate that Quaid's experience is real, but there is a scene that could be an evidence that Quaid is still dreaming. Like when for a brief moment he hears previously spoken recall operator dialogue. And there's another version that causes confusion among the viewers. Let's see the scene. Well, we'll never know. That depends on the viewer whether to believe if all of that is real or just a dream, which is why the outcome is open. Okay, to wrap this all up, aside from the basic idea of a spy who unknowingly wanting to be a spy, it is obvious that the movie version got nothing in common with the book. It totally ignores the Mars and the alien invasion that mentioned in the book. As we all know, this movie is a remake version from the Total Recall 90 and 90. Hence, it has the same major plot as the original film. However, this remake replaces Mars with Australia, or in the movie known as the Colony, and it adds the high-tech elevator that connects the UFB and the Colony. Well, that explains why the movie is quite different than the book. Okay, I think that's all from us. Thank you for watching and see you in our next presentation.